Thank you, George. Thank you. We're just trying to not rush it up, but to keep it on time. I'm back into topic, which is the 5G. So I just want to invite everyone, Richard and Bronwyn, and also George, to be here and then to answer your questions in particular. So let me just maybe bring some chairs for our presenters. All right, so we're going to open the space for half an hour of questions, making it all the way 2 hours and no more in case you have to go.
Technology.
That's horrific.
I know, it is horrific, but
all I can say specifically 5G related to that is I think it was Amsterdam where they had a test site and there was a park in the middle and I think about 200 starlings dropped dead of heart attacks.
Yes, that's what these birds have, heart attacks.
Heart attacks. So I guess the answer is yeah, entirely possible. I can't say anything more, but that's, yeah. I also, if you remember in the news a year or two ago, there were the American embassy in Cuba, and people were getting really sick and having to be transported out of there back to the US, and there was a big hoo-ha in the news at the time. It was, and they couldn't isolate the cause of that. They were saying maybe it was a subsonic weapon of some sort. I think that we know what the answer for that is, and I think it comes down to EMF radiation. I think that it was weaponized, and I think it was deployed there because they used to do green and common against the women who were protesting nuclear weapons back in the 80s. I remember the women being there, and they were using microwave radiation there. Hi.
Our brains have a frequency just like our fingerprints, etc. It's quite unique to each individual. And they're saying that 5G technology is able to capture our unique brain frequency and, gather that information. Are you familiar with that?
I can't say I am, no. I have to have a think about that. And don't scan me while I'm thinking.
I've heard that they can use those radiation beams to project into your brain, and you think that you're thinking, but you're actually picking up on what that radiation is being carried with. If they find the right frequency, and they've done the research, they can put thoughts into your brain. Well, that's the theory anyway. That's what I've heard.
If I could just add to that, recently, what we were discussing yesterday is the police in Melbourne have already got 5G antennas on their cars. So they've actually been using and quite capable of using 5G technology as a crowd control. So they can quickly disperse, if anyone sort of in a mob gets together in large mass, they can disperse them by using the 5G technology. There's been so many other instances. Just as an example, you mentioned, Richard, about the Gold Coast when they turned on 5G and trialled it. At the time, the German company NADA, who actually makes the radiation protection monitors for the personnel, they came out to Australia and used the Gold Coast as their testing facilities to see if their new devices worked or not. So they're making monitors. There's been one called Radman for about 20 to 30 years that they've been using. They're now updating it to a Radman 2, and that was trialled here in Australia. So even other parts of the world are looking to us as the guinea pigs, because we're switching it on and seeing what happens.
Okay, yeah.
My name's Ewan. Just wondering, probably all three of you, but I'll start with Bronwyn, just the protection, electromagnetic protection, but, both 5G, smart meters, whatever. I mean, you mentioned it getting switched off and all that, but, do we have or can we design things like sleeping pods or, Faraday cage rooms or something to protect at least our sleeping spaces or whatever?
At this stage, I'd say there's lots of devices out there on the marketplace. There's clothing, so forth. In the hierarchy of control that I work under, I prefer the avoidance to start with. If that's not possible, then it's the individual. I'd like to use my monitors to see what you're actually being exposed to and then work out the best protocol. What I am finding, so I can do shielding if it's in your home or where you work. However, shielding you can easily get it wrong, and I've found a lot of people who just automatically shield their smart meter, but then they don't educate themselves that once you've shielded, say, one wall of the bedroom, you then can't sit there with your mobile phone on or any other device because it ricochets. So you have to be very mindful of how to do it and how to do it properly. I went to a house in Beaumaris that had shielded every room of the house. So every room, every ceiling, every floor. And they were all quite ill just for the fact they were so away from the Earth's resonance.
How did they shield?
They'd shielded it with the Y-Shield, the black carbon paint. And then they'd made them very sick. And then small children. And then you had the tech stuff in the office, that was then ricocheting. So it made a sick building because of it. So there's also talk of different crystals, the shungite, in particular from Russia. However, we'll talk about, we haven't been able to actually use our meters to find that there's made an improvement. With any of the Y-Shield products, then yes, they will make a big difference if it's done correctly, but it's not something I would say, doing it yourself sometimes can be flawed where if you haven't thought about, do you have a tin roof? So that's ricocheting any signals. And then what other activities are you doing within your house or in your car or whatever? So there's no, unfortunately, easy solution or simple solution to that. I think so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree, and probably the most important device to protect yourself is what George has got in his hand, which is an EMF meter. And they're a couple of $100. You get them online, and the problem is they're not easy to use, and that's why Bronwyn's got a really important job, because having somebody who can use the meter properly and give you really solid advice based on the outcomes, that's invaluable. I've spent 5 years of my life trying to manage the situation in my home. And my kids, I'm the same as you, 2 teenage boys. What do they love doing best is YouTube and playing games, right? But they also enjoy mountain biking and they go out with their mates. So, we encourage that wherever we can. And it's not easy. I haven't got a lot of great answers, but I do sleep on a grounded sheet. That makes a big difference.
Sorry, just real quickly to continue off that point, just Bronwyn, are you able to give me your contact details? Because I'd love to get in contact with you.
Yes.
You sell the EMF reader on our website. It's called What is 5G?
What's it called?
Whatis5g.com.au. And so I would love your experience that gives us a little bit more information. Maybe we can put a little video on there just to show people how to do it.
Yes, we'll speak afterwards. So you've got I met you on Saturday at the rally. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
For the last 20 years, I've had myalgia, encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue. My career, and it does probably align when the internet first started, so it sort of makes me wonder now, looking back, okay, this is where it came from. Are you able to assist? I'm trying to work out in my mind that, okay, if it does relate to these radiations, is it something that I will immediately feel the difference to know whether what I have is actually a sensitivity to that or whether it's something else?
Okay, so great question. One of the major issues that I deal with, or building biologists are dealing with, is what we call a biotoxin illness. And that's from a number of environmental toxins. So it can incorporate mould. Mould is an incredibly debilitating issue of a water-damaged home.
I've been tested for that, none.
Okay, so you don't have any of the mycotoxins in your body. That's sensational. So that is one area ruled off. We find that there's, in the testing that we do now, we've got biomarkers in the blood that can be taken if you see an integrative practitioner. They can do biomarkers for electrical hypersensitivity. They also do multiple chemical sensitivities, but there's such a broad crossover of symptoms, as I've sort of mentioned. So it is trial and error sometimes, but it's removing yourself from the source. But it's the body's natural ability for the inflammation. So that's where fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, I would have said, let's look at mould first, so let's rule that out, and then look at the other factors. It depends on, I think, how long you've had it for to how quickly the body. But I really believe that you give the body what it needs in the right environment, the right diet, the right supplements, the right mindset, and right sleep. You can certainly heal anything.
Is this, and of course my thing would be, well, okay, I'll escape somewhere.
Yeah.
But then for how long before I know?
Oh, exactly. There's other people I've met who George mentioned about the radiation. There's refugees, one up in central Victoria as well. Some people try and get away, but it depends what you're reacting to. So it's not just radio frequencies. It could be the AC magnetic fields. It could be the AC electric fields, dirty electricity.
Is that something you could help me with?
Yeah, I'll give you my card and we can talk later on.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, solar panels as well.
Oh, it's the inverters.
There are some people that blame solar panels, and I'm saying to them, it's not the solar panels, it's the switching gear.
Yep.
So if you want to go bush, you're going to have to look at a quiet power system rather than maybe the inverter AC type. You might have to switch all your appliances to DC voltage. Some of the solutions we've heard, to me, are band-aid solutions. So shouldn't we get rid of this stuff altogether? Why do we need it?
Yeah.
And if I could just say something, you were talking about consciousness, and clearly, we've got an economic system which is promoting trillion-dollar industries around the world, and they're all jumping on board, and we've got the recycling of the lobbyists into the ministries in the United States and certainly here in Australia. So this is a sort of a juggernaut that's going to continue, and like what you were saying, I think we have to actually get rid of the addiction that we've all got to the technology. I've gotten rid of my phone. I don't have a phone anymore, and I also am not working. So I'm living in a space where I'm learning how to trust my life. I am an economist myself by training, but I've recognised the system itself is actually toxic, which is the very mirror of these radio frequencies. So ultimately, we've all got to shift. It's like, to what extent do we really want to shift, and can we shift?
If I go much further than that, it goes to the point where we need to restructure society. The way we're living is insane. Herding ourselves into big cities is a mad thing to do, right? Because that's where you're controlled. That's where all these problems are occurring. I've said it so many times. If you travel from Melbourne to Sydney, the two biggest population centres in Australia, whether you drive or you fly, what do you see? You see empty land. How come? Who owns the land? Why is it not in the hands of the people? Why aren't we decentralising? And then there could be something behind that. I wanted to show some slides.
Agenda 21.
Agenda 21.
2030.
Yeah.
Let's roll on to the next question.
How do we get hold of, how do people get hold of this letter to Molino and the reply and all of that?
You registered for tonight?
I will be on my
Yeah. I've got my contact sheet, but you might as well use Thomas and Bella's, and so that we can all communicate. We don't want to compete with each other anymore. We've had it. We're supposed to be.
Name down, will you contact us?
Well, surely we can get emails out to people.
I mean, the whole idea is to keep these events happening on a regular basis. So this way you can inform other friends or family to come back and also learn a little bit more. So
Everyone get it on Facebook too.
There is this Stop 5G Hills tribe. So if you just apply to go on there, a lot of information is shared on Facebook. And if you're not on Facebook, just pop your email down. But yeah, Stop 5G Hills tribe. And if you're in a different area, just go Stop 5G on Facebook as a search, and there'll be ones for Melbourne. There's ones for different councils.
Let's do it an hour before bed.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to say something, Cole?
Yeah, a question for Richard, and allow me to play the devil's advocate, if I may. With untold numbers of technicians and scientists knowing about these harmful effects, not to mention the police forces around the world that actively use them, why hasn't the word gone out? How could this conspiracy be kept so tight? Why hasn't, say, The Guardian, and I've looked on their website, there's been no investigative journalism that has, spill the beans?
Isn't it an excellent question? It's economics, to your point, right? It's the mighty dollar, and it is driven by market forces to quite a large extent. Devices, your mobile phone and your WhatsApp and your Snapchat and all of that, for 90-odd% of the population, is hugely addictive. I describe my kids as the ones that are growing up in the notification generation. They're constantly bombarded by this thing prodding them to do something. Okay? Nobody's lived with that before. Nobody has lived with that level of something hassling them all the time. But to get back on track and to answer your point a bit more directly, so the economics are driving this. I think that a lot of what's being talked about with the beamforming technology is a direct consequence of telcos not being able to meet demand. I actually do think there is a market demand for this technology to roll out, and roll out quite aggressively, particularly in parts of the city where you have all the office workers, they come out for lunch, they go and get their crap food, and they all get online, and they're all not just checking email, not just answering an SMS, not taking an individual call, they're having a broadband internet experience during their lunch hour, and they all want it, and they all want it at the same time. It is a huge problem for a telco to deliver service to those individuals, and they have to respond to it, because otherwise, I give you 2 stars because you can't, because you've got crap coverage. Oh, Voda failed. Remember that, when the Vodafone network was in bad state? So I think that it's being heavily driven by market forces, and I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. And then, what's driving demand? And we can get into a whole bunch of weaponisation of psychology involved with Facebook.
So you're saying media companies aren't being paid?
Rick had a question. Rick had a question.
Can I just continue to answer?
Yeah.
If I can just jump in about why there hasn't been further. There's a couple of people in Australia who have worked in the industry, whether the CSIRO, Don Maish, who's based in Tasmania, Victor Lee, she was in charge of the ORSAA. One of the biggest issues is it's the Australian Communication Media Authority that actually sells and controls the spectrum. So when it comes to then speaking about Wi-Fi and frequencies and what's the electromagnetic field spectrum, people in journalism are actually talking about their boss, I think the simplistic way of putting it. I think about 3 years ago, the Catalyst program on television, they actually did a whole program on it. And they actually, the Wi-Fi, yeah, they actually were sacked the next day. The program was pulled. There's still apparently some copies out there, but you can't get to see it. So there's a gag order, basically. So many good people are trying to, but you can't get the coverage. It's like when they were trying to stop the fracking down in Gippsland, no one would cover it. The journalists were basically told, don't touch.
I've just got one more thing to say. The Radio National show from Friday, he did try to answer the hard questions to Arpanza. Arpanza are totally industry controlled. He didn't get very good answers. I put a whole rebuttal on there about what should have been said and what the truth is, and you can read that. And I submitted that because I actually thought that he was quite brave in his line of questioning. I thought he tried to do a good job, and I hope he goes back again. And I just wanted to support him for trying to get some answers out. But
I've seen a run of pro 5G ads, and maybe you have as well if you ever watch TV, right? Have you seen a non-pro 5G ad? Definitely not. Right? So it's very one-sided.
Rick? Good segue.
Yep.
A friend at work just showed me a website today, probably useful to everyone if you're worried. It's the ACMA website. It's web.acma.gov.au. It'll show you every tower, the frequencies on that tower, who owns it, what the licence is. You can actually look at the licence online. It's all regulated, it's all licensed, so it's all available.
In the Melino letter, I cover part of the ACMA.
Yeah, sure. It's web.acma.gov.au. And you can zoom right in. It's an Australian map. You can keep zooming right in. It takes a bit of time, but you can get down to the pole in the street if you've got one. You can send every frequency on that pole.
In the Molino letter, I raised the ACMA. The ACMA do not impose the radiation limits. That's our Alpanza. And the Alpanza are the ones saying, we're only for information and educational purposes only. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, you guys went to a rally on Saturday, right? Can you just speak of what's the momentum of people rallying to this 5G?
So I was actually hoping tonight that Kawok would be here. She's basically the amazing power force of just, I'm impressed. When I hear her speak, it amazes me, her passion, her ability to get the word out there. So Kawok has basically set up the system of the Stop 5G in Melbourne. There's a whole listing on it's a closed Facebook page. I'm admin on the page with Kawok and Trish Garcia, who I thought was coming tonight. We're trying to sort of answer questions to people who are members, but we started to get trolled as well. So it's been really interesting. Kawok's got a whole information of letters and how to word them and who to send them to. So we tried to start off doing the different councils, but we just found that with so many individuals, it was very difficult to then make sure that every council has been covered. So we've sort of pulled it back in a little bit so it's a central point, unless other people would like to then lead their group, but then also sort of report back so that we're all on the same page. So that's what we're trying to be, is a very united front, and to have the correct wording and the correct terminology of what we're trying to actually achieve, which is halting the rollout of 5G until there's further peer-reviewed independent studies being made.
Is a petition worthwhile? Sorry.
That's right. With petitions, there is a girl called Jessie Reimers who has a lot of experience doing petitions. She's a bit of a celebrity on Facebook, YouTube. I was going to say, I didn't know of her until recently, but I was told that I'm a bit too old to be aware of who she is. So that's fine. I'm over 50 now. I wear it. It's okay. So her petitions in the past have been successful. This one that she's trying to do, at least it's one petition rather than everybody doing individual petitions. So that's where we're hoping that she can continue with her momentum, and the fact that she was so visible, that she's willing to put herself up there. There's times where others are mindful that you start speaking out about things, we get slammed, so it's good that someone's willing
A petition link on the 5G, Stop 5G Melbourne?
Yes.
Okay, because I've just recently joined that Facebook group, so it might be earlier on something.
Yes. Okay.
I'll just briefly comment on the Stop 5G Melbourne rally. So we marched from Flagstaff Garden, we shouted at the Telstra shop, we had a bit of a rally in the rain on Burke Street, and my estimate would be nearly 500 people were there. I was actually amazed at the number of people that were there for what I think is still a very fringe minority issue, but I was really buoyed by the fact that there's so much passion for people to turn out on a cold, miserable winter's day in Melbourne.
And it was good fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
It was fantastic.
I've got a question.
Yeah, look, I'd like to give you a one-sentence background of where I come from in terms of action. I am a legal activist. I'm fighting various things, and I've discovered that the power of an NOL, notice of liability, actually rises above the legal court system. It's, I won't bore you with the technicalities. It's what's called a private administrative process. Once you achieve an end point, the courts can't touch it. And it's what the anti-smart meter movement achieved in Canada and America to effectively stop the implementation of smart meters. And if you look at the videos that Cal Washington did, they turned the rollout of smart meters in Hawaii
Turned it into an opt-in rather
than
an opt-out.
opt-in or opt-out system. Now, I've taken that 12-page document and turned it into my own NOL, which I use against police. And George and I and Coac texted me just before she was halfway here and had to cancel. She was coming to see me and she was going to talk through where this could go. And George and I are trying to get an NOL which is specific to the, and I'll use the word individuals because I'm targeting the people behind their corporate facades. So when George very cleverly spotted that there was a disclaimer in the Apanza website, and we looked into the legal implications of that, we realised that any government agent, particularly Molino, who then took an opinion, was by virtue of the voiding of the Apanza standards, by virtue of the disclaimer, and you've got to read the disclaimer to see where the words are in it that legally allows them to step out of liability. Therefore, anybody who uses that agreement, holds it up as causal in effect, actually takes on personal liability. And this is why George's initial letter to Molino is effective. It's a softening process. I hope to finish a detailed NOL using input from George, using perhaps input from Ewan, who's a nuclear, correct me if I'm wrong, Ewan, a nuclear biologist, sorry, a neural biologist.
Neuro.
Yeah. So, to be effective, an NOL has to use facts. It's delivered in a three-part affidavit process. You have to put in facts that the other party can't refute, and it then, by virtue of their inability to refute the facts, it locks them into a PAP, private administrative process. Then, whoops, they can't take it into the courts because they have a default agreement with you. Now, I don't want to go too deep because, to me, it's where you plonk your action. And a lot of you won't be aware there was an ad in the local newspapers, and Coac drew my attention to it at that meeting in Tacoma, and she said, "What is this all about?" And I looked at it and I said, "Okay, it's an ad by a town planner. And the town planner is asking for any objections to a tower that's intended to be put up in the main
Belgrave South,
40 metres high. Oh, what's it needed there for? Oh, because it's a good location to link to the one up in Meansy Creek and the one up in wherever." So they're beginning to roll these out. And then I looked further at the ad and I said, well, what's going to happen next? And the ad clearly said, oh, we're going to ask council, the Rangers, to approve this in town planning. That's when the penny dropped from there and I went, right, X number of councillors on Yarra Ranges Council are going to vote to approve this infrastructure. What do they then do? They become personally liable. So I forget when the meeting's coming up, when the application's going to be in. Objections closed.
Last Friday.
Is it? Okay.
But it wasn't objections.
No, it was
They were soliciting community feedback, as in they wanted to be pre-warned what people were going to object about.
Yes. And when I read that, I thought, no. The night that council meeting happens is the night that 20, 30, 40, 50 people need to walk in and say, oh, Councillor Noel Cliff, here's your notice. And then 49 other people say, oh, you have to deliver them to the other council. Noel, here's your notice. Now, what does that mean? Because on that notice it says, we know where your property is, we know how much you earn from the council, we put in FOIs to obtain all this information. And people basically, and this happened in the rollout of the smart meters, they got rid of the Secretary of the Privy Council in Canada. Why? Because he got 250 NOLs in one day, and he got another 250 the next day. And he went, I think he's working here 5 years, and at the end of it realised that they've taken, action, and I've got no more property. I've got no more equity in my real estate. And the point I'm getting to you all, for you all, is to ask yourself, where is my energy best put? Now, sure, 500 people walking in the city is great, Did it get coverage? No. Did it make anybody feel, hey, whoops, I'm legally liable for what I've said? No. But when the NOL that George and I and Co-Oak and whoever else is going to put together, when that reaches Molino, and he goes, hey, I'm Deputy Prime Minister, I haven't got time to read this shit. Where's my interdepartmental lawyer? And, you know, his lackey and his staff is going to say, interpret this in terms of what this is going to do to me in my, say, government position. So what I'm getting at is the action you need to think in terms of is how do I bring sovereignty back to myself and hit these people using the maxim in law, which is you can't work outside your scope of office. Every government employee, every person that's behind an agency has a scope of office. When they work outside it, they work ultra vires and they become personally liable. I don't want to go on, I'm just saying that an NOL is, in my opinion, the most effective means to hit these people, and it literally has to start with 20, 30, and then 100, and then 500.
How do we help? How do we get it started?
Sorry?
How do we help? When we need to do this?
Well,
because that was awesome.
Cal was hoping to be here tonight, and I was going to meet her early, and we were going to run through my draft notes for an hour. You know,
Can I comment on that?
Sorry?
Can I just relate to what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so something that is a little bit of combination of what everybody we're talking here today. We as just small individuals, we don't have much power, and it's a lot of energy for each one of us to try to by himself fight those huge monsters, right? But as a collaboration, as a community, we can do it much more effectively. And for that, we need million people, but everyone can do a small thing. So, for example, the petitions that we have here, having everyone signing, and then we're gonna have, if we can, people that can speak the legal language and know how to deal with that, backing up all those lists of people by councils. Okay, so you feel free to send the petitions we have for South Yarra and for North, and you can take some pages home, or just we can post in the Facebook group the format, so you can just sign your neighbors, your friends, your peers.
What is the petition for?
Is to hold those people liable. So all those people.
Moratorium?
No, the wording there is that demanding a moratorium on the rollout of 5G.
The problem is that a petition in legal terms is a pleading. Okay, it's a pleading. You know, we plead.
Humbly seek your approval.
The problem is, in law, the highest message you can give is I demand. The second highest is I require. And so you do it via a process of conditional acceptance. You say, yes, you want to put 5G in my area. I'll conditionally accept that, but here are my terms. If it makes me sick, you will pay me $10 million. You will be liable. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now, one person does that, and you know, like when the concept of this, and you've got to realise a lot of people have done a lot of work to look back at what do we live in? We live in a world of commerce. You know, there's a whole lot of background I could give you, but let's say everyone here tonight went home and selected 4 friends and emailed, SMS, details of why those 4 friends should be involved in putting an NOL. And then the message said, okay, each of those 4 friends find another 4. You work out the arithmetic progression to that. By the time that's gone 5 times, you've got your groundswell.
Can I just say something? Because I've been researching this, and I feel like all our efforts are really worthwhile because a lot of it is raising awareness. So a protest in the city is amazing. You know, for people that because we have this bubble of community and we're talking to each other, and it can be, and I think what you're saying is really, really powerful. I also have done a lot of research, and I called the council because I do hope that there are some council members that want to be accountable and have integrity, and they have children and they also care about their own lives. So I contacted John Mortimer, who is the council member from Knox, and I had a really great heart-to-heart connection with him. He really heard, and I sent him an email with all really substantial links for him to research, and he said he was going to his health and wellness council meeting and he was going to bring it up there. So I feel like and Christine Firelane, who's working in the Mid-North Coast, she says we've got to focus, like it's very overwhelming when you think about 5G worldwide and how to stop it. We need to focus on the local wins, which is like, there's a website where you find out where the proposed 5G towers are in your area, and then I've been going, one's in the backyard of my mechanic, so I'm talking to my mechanic. There's a process there's a lawyer, Ray Broomhall, who's been very successful in Australia, and there's a process, and the files are on Stop 5G in Melbourne. You can access it's a step-by-step process. You need substantial evidence from a doctor, and then it's been successful as well. So there are lots of things we can do, and I think just talking to people in the street and raising awareness about 5G is huge, because if you don't have any 5G smart items, but your neighbour has all the 5G stuff, you're still going to be radiated. So, I did a letterbox stuff in my area to raise awareness, and I think all of those efforts are really worthwhile, and I think what you're suggesting is really powerful.
Petitions are wonderful, but by definition they're petite.
They support
yes, but if you can include a my will process in the petition, it becomes a much more powerful instrument.
But I can talk to you.
With regards to what Paul has just said, I've also spent quite a bit of time looking into this, and this really, really works. It requires the least number of people. If you want to look it up online, look up Cal Washington, the person that Paul referred to.
The Empower Movement.
The Empower Movement. And my suggestion is if this sort of gets you, that this straddles the legal process in actual fact. It's something so powerful that the legal system, it's beyond the legal system. Thank you, above. Organise another time for interested people to get into this, to find out more of the details and use this in regard to this, because there's an issue of speed involved with regard to 5G. I can't recommend enough to look into this. I urge everyone to look into this, and Paul and George.
We're hoping to have the draft of the NOL by Friday's meeting, and then Richard's targeted to get a copy and hopefully deliver it personally to Melina, because he will immediately throw it at his legal people and he will look at the legal implications. Your input would be phenomenal, because in an NOL you have to cite the truth as you know it, and you have to be able to back it up. So, I mean, there's innumerable reports, but we're trying to see which are the best reports to make it effective.
There was discussed yesterday, there's one report in particular that has taken 37 years of research, and it's just been released. I'm expecting the PDF file to come soon, and hopefully Google it anyhow. So that would be great. Yes.
If we get everyone's email, we'll be able to send you information.
You can connect with all different
We'll have
groups.
to start wrapping it up.
Just to final word, because it's 9 o'clock, some people have to go. We're gonna still be here if you wanna hang around a little bit and talk to people individually, but maybe some final words on the subject, moving forward as an empowering.
I also just wanted to mention that there's also another movement. We're doing Wi-Fi in schools as a professional level, and that's another about the letters of liability and so forth.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of success with that.
Edith Vale was used as a test school.
Edith Vale.
Howard told me.
Okay.
They put 5G through Edith Vale Primary or Secondary, I can't remember which. The following day, a quarter of the teachers didn't attend because of headache sickness dominant.
Okay.
An unknown number of children didn't attend.
Yes.
And yeah, not good.
That's actually criminal. That's actually criminal if they're experimenting on people.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And that's what we're finding at the moment,
That's really
exactly what you
serious.
said. Once we've approached different principles, so we've found the Catholic system is very approachable because they've got control of what's in their own school. The public system isn't so much because the state dictates what the infrastructure must be. But we're starting the conversations and there's a lot of concerned parents, which is great. So slowly, but we just want everything wired again, make it safe. And at least our Panzer now have almost shot themselves in the foot in regards to being reliable when they say that it's safe or it's not safe.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on 5G, because I think my presentation said they're going to do everything with 4G as well, and that's true. But the difference with 5G is it's going to open up the Wild West. The technology will just take all guide rails off and throw everything into non-standards. And it's going to be a destandardisation and go hell for leather. That's why we need to make a difference now. And I think that, to your point, Angela, we need to take a multi-pronged approach, and part of it is coming together, supporting one another. I love Paul and George's approaches where we can hit the decision makers hard. I love the Ray Blumenthal approach as well. And I'm now in touch with somebody, a journalist who's on the 5G Action Committee in Byron Bay. They successfully stopped the go-ahead of a tower in the area, so I'm really hoping to connect with her as well.
So you're saying the towers are dangerous?
Sorry?
You're saying they're dangerous because they're a danger to our health and they could be detrimental, it could cause us to basically die. So they would be considered as death towers. Now, I went to the rally on Saturday and we gave out 1,000 flyers. We were really proactive, everyone loved us on the day. But I'm wondering, we got attacked by 5G members in regards to being there, and we were told not to attend for future reference. So I'm confused as to what is the message that we're trying to convey, and if there was any inconvenience or any issues in regards to, hey, us being there and you not making us feel comfortable. You guys made us feel wonderfully comfortable. We felt really happy, we took photos, everyone loved it. So what I'm confused about is our website is presenting the same thing basically, which is 5G needs to be tested before it's actually rolled out. Yep, and if it is going to be rolled out altogether, but it's currently being used as a militarised weapon. It's being used everywhere as a militarised weapon, and a lot of countries have decided to cancel it for now until it's being tested. So that's what we're pushing on my website. Now we've been told by our 5G community, and not only that, but by Trevor Lang. Trevor Lang decided to write a little bit of a script on his blog in regards to our website and our flyers and what we were presenting. We were providing people with EMF readers. Those EMF readers could potentially save their lives. What's wrong with that? Now, I don't understand. So this is a confusing process for me because it's the first time that we've gotten involved in regards to this. We've always wanted to get the word out, and we've had the word out for a few months now. So we're confused as we're just attending the rally together to support each other. As far as I'm aware, anybody's welcome. As far as I'm aware, we're just looking to spread the message because we all truly care about each other's families too. Yeah? So that's why we created the website. It's called What is 5G? We're trying to explain it to people that don't understand the negativity behind 5G. So that's what we were there for. So I don't understand. We spend money out of our pockets in regards to making sure that people are aware. Those flyers were fantastic. They were used by everybody. Everyone was giving out my flyers. So I'm confused as to why we've been attacked after that. I just really don't understand, because my partner in the situation is a female, and she feels that she was directly attacked on Messenger. So
yeah, sure, that will happen.
By our 5G community.
Just a closing word from me is one of the biggest indicators, which is a of immense concern is, have you seen the reports showing that 80% of the insects have disappeared on the earth the last 20 years? That is such a huge indicator. It may not be wireless radiation, it's probably chemical, but the wireless radiation is going to accelerate it perhaps. And if we're destroying the natural system, we're destroying ourselves.
I reckon a multi-pronged solution, exactly what the solicitor was saying, exactly what this lovely lady was saying up here. All of us working together in regards to unity and having a controlled group that actually is organised. We don't get called names.
Yeah, we need to wake up who we are.
We need to have
That's
that
the
unity
issue.
together, and I don't understand why the first time we met the group, we got attacked, and that doesn't make sense. So I would like, for
If
example,
I can just jump in for a moment, because everyone is waiting to go home and to finish things up. So I can answer you once everyone else is finished with, just to let you know my thoughts on the attack. And it came down to a conflict of interest, purely because...
We've got no interest.
Yeah, well, you've got devices to sell.
That doesn't
And that was just...
we weren't aware that you existed.
So I'm not speaking over the top of you,
Sorry,
and I'm listening. So respect for that.
Let's just keep it for after the presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you,
because
Rosie.
there's a private conversation.
A round of applause to our presenters. Thank you. So, please make sure to put your email in the mailing list. That way we can send you information and connect you to each of our presenters if you want to have more information and research. Yeah, it takes a lot of research to do it. So thank you. We're going to organize, or try to organize this event again, probably in about 5 or 6 weeks, to have a new round of people and continue to raise awareness about this subject. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.